Have you ever seen a moment so unexpected that it changed someone's entire life in seconds? Well, what happened in this interview room left even the CEO speechless. Stay till the end because when the baby said one word, everyone froze and you'll understand why. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live for more heart-touching real-life stories that remind us kindness still exists. Rain poured over the city like it was washing away every dream. Inside a small apartment, on the 7th floor, Lena, a young single mother, stood in front of a cracked mirror, fixing her hair with trembling hands. Her faded white blouse had been ironed 3 times to hide the wear, and her black skirt, 2 sizes too large, was pinned at the waist. Her eyes looked tired but determined. Beside her, a small voice said softly, "Mommy, are we going to see nice people today?" Lena turned to her 3-year-old son, Noah, sitting on the bed clutching a small toy car with a missing wheel. "Yes, baby. Mommy's going to talk to some nice people who might give her a job. Then maybe we can buy you a new toy." Noah smiled, unaware that this interview meant survival. Lena had been working part-time cleaning offices and studying at night, but bills were swallowing her faster than she could breathe. This internship at Harrington Enterprises, one of the biggest marketing firms in the city, was her last hope before eviction. But there was one problem. Her babysitter had canceled that morning. She had no one else to call. Her family had long turned their backs after she chose to keep Noah when his father disappeared without a word. Her mother's last words echoed in her head, "You'll regret that child ruining your life." But as Lena looked at Noah's innocent face, she whispered to herself, "He didn't ruin my life. He gave it meaning." She wiped away a tear, packed his small snack bag, and took a deep breath. "You'll have to be Mommy's little helper today, okay?" Noah nodded proudly. "I'll be super quiet." The subway ride felt endless. People stared, some with pity, others with judgment. Lena clutched Noah close as they reached the towering glass building that reflected the gray sky. "This is it," she whispered. "Wish me luck, baby." Inside the lobby, marble floors gleamed beneath crystal lights. The receptionist's polite smile faded slightly when she saw the toddler. Ma'am, interviews are upstairs, but children aren't usually allowed." "I understand," Lena said quickly, her voice soft but firm. "I didn't have a choice today. I promise he'll behave." The woman hesitated, then pointed to the elevator. 17th floor. Mr. Grayson Harrington will see you." As they entered the elevator, Lena's heart raced. The CEO himself? She had expected a manager, not the man whose name was on every magazine cover for most influential entrepreneur under 35. When the doors opened, she saw a modern office with glass walls and a city view stretching to the horizon. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood near the window, his expression unreadable. His sharp jawline and focused eyes gave him an air of control that made Lena's voice falter. "Mr. Harrington? I'm Lena Carter, here for the internship interview." He turned, studying her for a moment. Then his gaze dropped to Noah, clinging to her skirt. "You brought your child?" Lena flushed red. "Yes, sir. I had no one to watch him. I completely understand if this disqualifies me, but I didn't want to miss the chance." Noah, sensing tension, hid behind his mother's legs, then peeked up at the CEO with wide, curious eyes. Grayson sighed softly. "Let's sit. Tell me why you think you're fit for this position." Lena began to speak about her studies, her passion for marketing, her late-night projects, but her voice trembled. Halfway through, Noah's tiny voice interrupted the silence. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." Before she could respond, a deep chuckle escaped Grayson. "It's all right. There's water in that mini-fridge. Go ahead." Noah toddled over, grabbed a small bottle, then looked up at the CEO again. His eyes sparkled with recognition, as if he'd seen something familiar in the man's face. He walked right up to Grayson, pointed at him, and said, clear as day, "Daddy?" The room went completely silent. Lena froze. Grayson's expression shattered. Every assistant outside stopped typing. Noah smiled innocently and repeated, "Daddy." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The only sound in the entire office was the faint hum of the air conditioner. Grayson Harrington, one of the most composed men in the corporate world, stood completely still, his eyes locked on the little boy who had just called him Daddy. Lena's heart pounded so loud she thought the whole room could hear it. Noah, she whispered sharply, her face flushing red. Sweetheart, don't say that. But before she could finish, Noah climbed into the guest chair beside her and smiled proudly. He looks like the picture in my dream, Mommy. The one you said was my daddy. Lena's throat tightened. She hadn't realized her son had remembered those nights when he asked why he didn't have a father, and she'd made up bedtime stories. Stories of a brave, kind man who would protect them someday. Oh God, she thought, he's repeating my words to a total stranger. I'm so sorry, Mr. Harrington, she stammered, hands shaking. He doesn't mean, he's just... Grayson finally blinked and raised a hand. It's fine. His voice was calm, but something flickered behind his eyes. Confusion, pain, maybe even fear. He turned toward the window, exhaling slowly. Children say unexpected things. Yes, sir, Lena whispered, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her whole. Grayson turned back, his professional mask snapping into place. Let's continue, Miss Carter. Tell me, why marketing? Why this company? Lena took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. Because I believe stories sell, sir. Not just products, but feelings. And your company, she paused, gesturing toward the logo framed on the wall, builds trust through emotion. That's what I want to learn. How to connect people, not just convince them. For a second, Grayson seemed taken aback by the sincerity in her tone. He nodded slowly. That's an interesting answer. As the interview went on, something shifted in him. He found himself studying her, not in judgment but in curiosity. Her eyes held exhaustion but also fire. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke, yet every word carried purpose. She wasn't here out of ambition alone. She was fighting for survival. When Noah dropped his toy car and it rolled across the floor, Grayson instinctively knelt to pick it up. The moment his hand touched the small red car, he froze. The name Noah was written on the bottom in black marker, with handwriting that looked hauntingly familiar. His pulse quickened, but he quickly placed it back with a polite smile. Thank you, sir, Noah said softly, his big brown eyes meeting his. Something in those eyes, so innocent, so familiar, sent a strange ache through Grayson's chest. When the interview ended, Lena stood quickly. Thank you for your time, Mr. Harrington. I understand if... I haven't made a decision yet, he interrupted gently. You'll hear from us soon. She nodded, gathered her bag, and reached for Noah's hand. Say goodbye, sweetheart. Bye, Daddy. Noah chirped happily. Lena gasped, mortified. Noah, please. Grayson's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. He simply nodded once. Goodbye, Noah. As the elevator doors closed behind them, Lena finally let out the breath she'd been holding. Her cheeks burned with shame, but her heart ached with something else, disappointment. She had ruined everything. Meanwhile, inside his office, Grayson sat back in his chair staring at the city skyline, but all he could see was that little boy's face. His assistant, Maya, knocked lightly and peeked in. Sir, are you all right? You look pale. Grayson's fingers drummed against the desk. Find everything you can on the candidate who just left, Lena Carter. Education, background, previous employers, everything. Maya blinked. Yes, sir. Right away. When she left, Grayson leaned forward, resting his head in his hands. He didn't know why this woman's name tugged at something deep inside him, or why the boy's eyes looked exactly like his own when he was 3. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo he kept hidden, one of himself years ago with a woman he had once loved deeply, before everything fell apart. Her name had been Elena Carter. They had dated briefly during college before she disappeared without a word. He whispered to himself, Lena Carter. Could it be? At that exact moment, in a small, dimly lit apartment across town, Lena sat on her couch, holding Noah close. He was already asleep, clutching his toy car. She brushed his hair back and whispered, You can't say things like that again, okay, baby? He's not your daddy. But deep down, even as she said it, a tiny part of her wondered, why did Grayson look so shocked? The next morning, Grayson Harrington didn't open his laptop right away. He sat in silence, staring at the faint reflection of his own face on the office window. The city below was alive and busy, yet inside him everything felt strangely still. He hadn't slept. All night, one question haunted him. Who is Lena Carter? When his assistant Maya entered with her usual brisk tone, Grayson looked up immediately. "Did you find what I asked for?" "Yes, sir," she said, handing him a folder. She's 25, graduated top of her class in marketing from a small community college. Single mother. Lives in Greenview Apartments. Worked part-time at several offices. No criminal record, no major debts. Just, Maya hesitated. She's had a hard life. Grayson flipped through the pages until his eyes stopped on a scanned ID photo. The resemblance to Elena Carter, his college love, was undeniable. The same soft smile, the same bright but cautious eyes. He whispered under his breath. "She even looks the same." Maya tilted her head. "Sir?" "Nothing," he said quickly, closing the folder. "Cancel my meetings for the afternoon." Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Lena woke to the sound of her son humming beside her. Noah was drawing something on a torn piece of paper. When she looked closer, her heart clenched. It was a picture of 3 stick figures, a mommy, a daddy, and a small child holding both their hands. "Noah," she said softly, "why did you draw this?" "Because the man yesterday looked lonely," he said innocently. "He needs a family too." Lena smiled faintly, hiding the sting in her chest. "You're such a kind boy, my love. But remember, sometimes grown-ups have their own stories we don't understand." Just then her phone buzzed. The screen showed a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, but something told her to answer. "Hello?" "Miss Carter," came a calm, deep voice. "This is Grayson Harrington." Lena froze. "Mr. Harrington?" "Yes, I'd like to discuss your interview from yesterday. Are you available to meet this afternoon?" "There are additional details I'd like to clarify." Her stomach twisted. Was he going to scold her? Cancel her application? Or, worse, report her unprofessional behavior for bringing a child? Still, she swallowed her nerves. "Yes, of course. I can come." "No need," he said. "I'll send a car to your address." "Bring your son." Her heart skipped a beat. "Bring Noah?" "Yes, I'd like to speak with both of you." When the call ended, Lena sat frozen, the phone slipping from her fingers.
"What does he want with us?"
she whispered. Hours later, a sleek black car stopped outside her building. The driver, dressed in a suit, opened the door with a polite nod. Lena, holding Noah's hand tightly, stepped inside. The ride was silent except for Noah's occasional questions. "Are we going to the big shiny place again?" "Do you think Daddy will be there?" Every word felt like a dagger in her heart. "He's not your daddy, baby," she murmured. When they arrived, they were escorted not to the office this time, but to a private rooftop garden above the building. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the city. Grayson stood by the railing, his hands in his pockets. "You came," he said quietly. "Yes, sir," Lena replied, her voice barely audible. He turned, his eyes soft but searching. "I wanted to speak privately. Yesterday's interview, it stirred something in me." Lena frowned. "I don't understand." Grayson looked at Noah, who was now chasing a butterfly near a flower pot. "Your son, he looks familiar." "Too familiar." Lena's breath caught. "Mr. Harrington, please don't say that. He's just a child. He didn't mean to—" "I know," Grayson interrupted gently. "But tell me, Lena, where did you go to college?" Her heart thudded painfully. "St. Clair University," she said after a pause. He nodded slowly. "That's what I thought. I went there too. I used to know someone there, a woman named Elena Carter." Lena's lips parted. Her pulse roared in her ears. "That was me." The air between them thickened. "I thought you disappeared," Grayson said quietly. "You left without a word. I looked for you for months." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't have a choice. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared. You were starting your company. I didn't want to destroy your life before it even began." Grayson's expression faltered. He took a slow step toward her, his voice trembling now. "So you're telling me Noah is—" Lena looked away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, he's yours." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The wind carried only the faint laughter of Noah playing, innocent to the storm swirling between his parents. Grayson stood completely still, staring at Lena as if he had just seen a ghost. The sunset bathed the rooftop in orange light, but inside him, a storm raged. All these years he thought, "I had a son, and I never knew." Lena couldn't meet his eyes. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I know what you're thinking, that I should have told you. That I lied, but I—" Grayson cut in sharply. Why didn't you? Her hands tightened around her purse strap. Because you were just starting your empire, Grayson. You had dreams, investors, the press watching your every move. You wouldn't have had time for me or a baby. I didn't want to become your burden. His jaw clenched. You think being my family would have been a burden? Tears welled up in her eyes. At that time, yes. You were under so much pressure. I saw it, you barely slept. You talked about how failure wasn't an option. I was terrified that telling you would ruin everything you worked for. He turned away, his voice breaking. You didn't give me the chance to decide. Lena wiped her tears, whispering, You're right. And I've hated myself for that every single day. For a moment, silence fell between them, broken only by Noah's laughter echoing through the garden as he chased a butterfly across the flowers. Grayson turned to look at the little boy, his son. Every gesture, every smile, even the way he wrinkled his nose, it was like looking into a mirror of his own childhood. His chest tightened with emotion. He took a hesitant step forward. Does Noah know anything about me? Lena shook her head. Only what I told him. That his daddy was brave and kind. That he was somewhere far away working hard. Her voice cracked. I wanted him to be proud of you even if you weren't in our lives. Grayson's throat burned. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the poor intern standing before him, but the woman who had once believed in him when no one else did. The one who had stood beside him during sleepless nights and cheap takeout dinners dreaming of better days. He whispered, You raised him alone. Without help. You've been through so much. Lena's eyes flickered up, uncertain whether his words carried sympathy or anger. I did what any mother would do. Before Grayson could respond, Noah ran over holding a small flower. Mommy, Daddy! Look what I found. Both adults froze. The word hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Noah looked between them, confused. Did I say something wrong? Lena knelt down, trying to smile. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Her voice cracked again as she added softly, You just said something very special. Grayson slowly bent down beside her, his eyes meeting Noah's. Hey, buddy, he said gently. Do you know who I am? Noah tilted his head. You're the nice man from the big office. Mommy said you help people. Grayson smiled faintly, his voice softening. I'd like to help you too. Would you like that? Noah grinned. Yes. Lena's heart twisted at the sight. She wanted to protect her son, but for the first time she also wanted to let him have what he'd never known, a father's love. But before she could speak, Grayson's tone changed, calmer but firm. Lena, I want to be part of his life. I've missed too much already. Her lips parted. You don't have to do this out of guilt. He shook his head. This isn't guilt. It's responsibility and love. I'm not going to walk away from my own son. Lena stepped back, torn between relief and fear. Grayson, please, you don't understand how hard it's been. Our worlds are different now. You're powerful. I'm barely surviving. People like you don't live with people like me anymore. He moved closer, his voice gentle but certain. Then let's prove them wrong. She looked up at him, stunned. What are you saying? I'm saying I want you and Noah in my life. Not as a charity, not as a secret, but as family. Tears rolled down her cheeks and she whispered, It's not that simple. Maybe not, he said softly. But we'll figure it out together. Noah tugged at Lena's hand. Mommy, can we have ice cream now? Both adults laughed through their tears. Grayson smiled and said, You heard him. Ice cream it is. As they walked toward the elevator, the setting sun behind them, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe this time, she wouldn't have to face life alone. But as the elevator doors closed, a shadowy figure stepped out from behind a column, Maya, Grayson's assistant, watching them leave. Her expression was unreadable as she took out her phone and whispered, Sir, we may have a problem. The next morning, the city glowed under soft sunlight, but inside Harrington Enterprises, tension simmered. Rumors had already started spreading, people whispering about how the CEO had personally picked up an intern and her child. Grayson ignored the stares as he stepped into his office, but his assistant Maya was waiting with crossed arms. Sir, may I speak frankly? He nodded. Always. She placed a folder on his desk. That woman, Lena Carter, she's not like us. She's struggling. And the board won't like the image this could create. You have investors to answer to. Grayson's jaw tightened. Maya, this isn't about image. It's about doing what's right. Maya sighed. Doing what's right could cost you your company. People are already asking questions. He turned toward the window, his reflection looking back at him. Strong on the outside, uncertain within. If I've built an empire that can't handle compassion, then maybe it's not worth keeping. Before Maya could reply, his phone buzzed. It was Lena. Her voice trembled. Grayson, I think I made a mistake coming here. People are talking. I don't want to ruin your career. Stop, he said firmly. You're not ruining anything. Meet me in the lobby in 10 minutes. When he hung up, he took a deep breath. For the first time, he didn't care what the media or the board thought. He cared about one thing, his family. 10 minutes later, Lena and Noah stood in the marble lobby. People whispered as the CEO himself descended the grand staircase, eyes only on them. Lena started nervously. Grayson, maybe it's better if we just... He took her hand gently, stopping her words. No, I've been silent too long about the things that matter. Then, before she could protest, he turned toward the staff gathered nearby and spoke clearly, his voice echoing across the hall. This woman, he said, his hand still holding hers, is the bravest person I've ever met. Years ago I lost her because I was too focused on success. And this little boy, he smiled at Noah, who hid shyly behind Lena's legs, is my son. A gasp rippled through the lobby. Cameras clicked. Employees stared. Lena's heart pounded. Grayson, you don't have to do this. He looked at her with eyes full of conviction. I want to do this. You spent years carrying everything alone. It's time the world sees the truth. That love, not pride, defines who we are. Lena's tears fell freely. For years she'd dreamed of hearing those words, but never believed she would. From the crowd, someone whispered, Is he serious? Another murmured, He's calling them family. Grayson smiled faintly and continued, Noah, buddy, I made a promise to your mom once to build something meaningful. I thought that meant business. But I was wrong. It means building us. Noah's little face lit up. Does that mean we can live together, Daddy? Grayson knelt and hugged him tightly. If Mommy says yes. Lena covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Grayson, after everything. He stood and looked her in the eyes. I don't care about the past. I care about our future. I want you both in my life. No more secrets. No more distance. Lena's voice broke. Are you sure you're ready for this? The world won't make it easy. He smiled softly. Then we'll face it together. At that moment, applause began softly from a few employees, spreading until the entire lobby filled with clapping and cheers. Even Maya, watching from the upper floor, lowered her phone slowly and whispered, Maybe he's finally doing what's right. Later that day, headlines exploded online. Billionaire CEO reunites with lost love and child. Family is my greatest success, he says. But in their small apartment that night, none of that mattered. Lena tucked Noah into bed while Grayson sat beside them, reading the same bedtime story he'd missed for 3 years. Noah giggled and said, Daddy, this is my favorite story. Grayson smiled. Mine too, buddy. When Noah drifted to sleep, Lena turned to Grayson. You really turned your world upside down for us. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. It was never the right world without you in it. She smiled through tears. You know, I still can't believe how it all started, with one little word from a child. Grayson chuckled softly. The best things in life start with a word. Daddy, huh? They both laughed quietly, their hands intertwined. Outside, the city lights shimmered, but for once neither of them cared about the world beyond their little family.